This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
We have a governor's race along with a congressional race, along with a U.S. Senate race, and a whole assortment of state Senate and state House races. Folks, 2022 was a big year, especially with the congressional special election, and some get confused with the top four and the ranked choice. Through it all, we have a former governor who has decided to come back and throw his hat in the ring. He thinks he can make a difference and with momentum change the trajectory for a better path for Alaskans. And his name is Governor Bill Walker. And Governor Walker, always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's been a while. How are you, and how is the campaign going?
Well, Tom, good to hear your voice, and thanks for being allowing me to be on your show. And campaign's going well. We have lots of momentum. We have over 100 statewide co-chairs. About 7 or 8 of them are in the Valley, so we're happy with the momentum we have in the campaign. Absolutely.
You've got a governor incumbent who's running for re-election. That's always tough when there's an incumbent and someone challenges. Now, you have the stature of being a former governor and among other policy-making roles, and definitely a fruitful resume that I think people have taken notice of. What made you decide, $1 million question, to ultimately run against Dunleavy, again, formidable because he's an incumbent?
Yes. Well, it was not a snap decision, Tom. It was one that over time I sat back for basically 3 years and let things kind of play out and did not weigh in on anything. And because we have one governor at a time, and it's a tough job enough without someone nipping at your heels that was there before. So I respected Governor Parnell doing the same thing. But a group came to me and said, we're concerned about the future of the state. There's a lot of support from the business community and what I'm doing. They're concerned about sort of a lack of focus, vision, fiscal plan. We have gone through $20 billion of savings in the last 10 years. That's hard to imagine. Our permanent fund itself is $80 billion. So we spent $20 billion in savings with no fiscal plan. And so we tried one, we submitted one, we got parts and pieces of it through, but not the whole thing. So they're concerned about the future, the people leaving Alaska, the young people leaving, it's just lots of things that caused me to step back in. This is not it was not my plan after I served to run again. It really was not.
In terms of your credentials, so people understand your background and the roots you have, why don't you go through, please? And I know your history, but you could go through your business, and we even talked about another candidate and his mom teaching your kids, and we were comparing notes on, for you, grandkids, and for me, Grayson. What's your background, and why should someone say, hey, I took notice of Bill Walker? He's definitely got a connection to Alaska.
Well, certainly I do. My father was in the Alaskan Scouts in World War II out in the Aleutians. My mother came to Alaska to work on the building of the Alcan Highway. So that's sort of the beginning of my roots in Alaska. I was born in Fairbanks, grew up in Valdez, 30 years in Valdez. After college, came back, worked on the oil pipeline, met the love of my life, my bride, Donna, 45 years ago, and married in Valdez. And so off we went I was mayor of Valdez when I was in my late 20s, went off to law school, came back. We were in the legal world. We had our own firm for many, many years, and stepped away to run for governor some time ago. And it was we have 4 children, 6 grandchildren, and 5 of the 6 are here in Alaska. So I am passionate about things that make Alaska better and a future for them, as well as for everyone's children and grandchildren. We are a great state, and we just need to. I'm an independent. I come from the right. I was a Republican, moved to independent. My running mate, Huddy Dragas, also Alaskan born and also in Fairbanks. She's come from the left and moved to the middle. So our unity ticket. And we're just really common sense, solution based. That's what we're after. We're not pushing one direction or the other than straightforward and what's best for Alaska. So it's just common sense decision making is all we're about.
Are you happy with the permanent fund dividend amount and that it's coming early with that? I know I'm putting you in a corner because you're competing with Dunleavy. So to say, hey, are you going to praise him? You're probably going to take pause and say, don't make me do that. But just as a matter of public policy, do you think that was the right decision? And do you like what you see forthcoming?
Well, I like a couple things. One is I think that the dividend is critically important to Alaskans. It has been for some time. It'll continue to that. So I certainly support the dividend, and I want it to continue for generations and generations and generations. So I want the highest dividend that we can afford, but not at the expense of high taxes or at the expense of weakened government services such as education and public safety. So we have to find that right balance. I'm glad the legislature passed their own energy relief bill, similar to what Governor Palin did when oil prices were 147. As you well know, Tom, we have an upside-down situation. We celebrate, high oil prices, but then we don't celebrate when you pull up to gas up your pickup at all. That hurts. I mean, no attack has gas prices at $17 a gallon. So we can't sustain that. So I think the dividend is, it's the highest dividend paid in the nation, if not the world. It's a tremendous benefit to Alaskans, and we'll continue that.
When you look at the other races going on in ranked choice voting and top four jungle primary, Washington picks the top two. Washington State will pick the top four. And right across from you is a U.S. Senate campaign. Have you publicly weighed in on that, on the tail of the late, great Don Young endorsing Lisa Murkowski, U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan endorsing Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican leadership in the U.S. Senate endorsing Lisa Murkowski? Have you endorsed her or anybody else, or are you just staying in your lane on that one?
I'm pretty much staying in my lane on that one, but I'm very public about my appreciation for the delegation, the late Congressman Young and Lisa Murkowski and Senator Sullivan on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which would be transformational for Alaska if we go after it and if we were able to bring some of those funds to Alaska for projects we've only dreamt about. So I am very supportive of Senator Murkowski, no question about that. I've not done anything formally yet, but yes, I do certainly support her.
Sure, I support her too. Let me ask one question before we go to a break. We're talking with former Governor Bill Walker, who is running for election this cycle and wants your support. And he's got a lot of competitors. We'll get into a little bit of that and more about his agenda. But super quick, do you like the ranked choice voting, or is it something that you inherited and you'll deal with it?
Well, I guess I'll say how much I like it after the election, Tom. But I think it's a change. That I think it was a time for a change. So we play the hand we're dealt with everything we do. So we'll see how it comes out. I'm not uncomfortable with it. I'll put it that way.
Sure. No, and it may bode well for you the way it's structured. We're going to come right back with former Governor Bill Walker, and we'll take your calls if they're respectful, 357-5868. Otherwise, sit back, relax, stay with us. Tom Anderson Show.
This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Hey, we're back with Governor Bill Walker right here on the Tom Anderson Show. Remember, we're on 7 to 9 a.m. on KVNT, 1020 a.m. and 92.5 FM online at tomandersonshow.com. And you're welcome to go to our YouTube channel later today, and we'll have this interview with a photo of Governor Walker up, and you can listen at your leisure. We also have a podcast on tomandersonshow.com, a green window from Buzzsprout that you can listen to the audio as well, but I'd recommend if you're going to listen or share it, you go to the YouTube channel, Tom Anderson Show. I also asked for calls, 357-5868 if people have questions. Gary called in, And he said, I see you have someone that took our dividend on East Anchorage. Have a good weekend. I don't want to ask any questions. And Bill, Governor Walker, we also had another call, and he actually stayed on through the break. State Representative Kevin McCabe was also on the PFD. So let's keep it respectful, everybody. But Representative McCabe, did you have a question or comment for Governor Walker?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Yeah, I sure do. Governor, I'm curious, you've never really addressed it. You were the first governor to really dabble in the PFD prior to your veto of the PFD. It was always a transfer. You sort of made it a appropriation and put it in the laps of the legislature and had to go through the courts and everything else, and you vetoed a significant chunk of the people's PFD, which belongs to them. It doesn't really belong in the taxes and revenue arena. But the money is still sitting in the ERA, and you never really publicly addressed why you did that, and you never really did anything with the money. So I'm curious, if you had to go back and do it over again, knowing the angst and the issues that it has caused since you did that, for everybody, the residents of the state, as well as the legislature and the governor, would you do it again?
Well, thanks for that question. I think that, based upon the action taken by the legislature since on addressing that, and even the current governor, there had to be an adjustment. And so it was the toughest decision I made, not for me politically. I don't put it through that matrix as far as it would disproportionately impact Alaskans on the lower income level. The Senate, the Republican-led Senate passed Senate Bill 128 before I did that, Tom, and or Kevin. And they passed that, and the House couldn't get it out of committee, Finance Committee, to put on the floor for a vote, because their bill reduced the dividend to about $1,000, a historical average. Because we're at $26 oil, we had a $4 billion hole in the budget, and we're trying to grow the permanent fund. And so when the Senate passed that, we assumed that the House would. When they didn't, I went ahead and followed the lead of the Republican, controlled Senate, and made that adjustment down to the historical average. The result of that decision, financially, it grew the permanent fund an additional a little over $7.2 billion in growth as a result of not overdrawing the permanent fund itself. So, the goal is to, we get the permanent fund to $100 billion. We're good. We're golden. We can draw off of that and the 4.5-5% sustainable draw, and there we are going in, on into forever, and not have to worry about bringing in high taxes. If we overdraw and draw down that permanent fund, then we're looking at high taxes, which I'm certainly not in favor of that. So it was a tough decision, very difficult decision, not for me politically, but based upon the impact it would have on Alaskans. But it was about, and each legislature since then, it is an appropriation and always has been. And so the courts ruled, the Supreme Court ruled that it was an appropriation. It was appropriate my actions, it was appropriate subsequent action by the legislature to make similar kinds of adjustments. So it's an important part of our economy, our fabric of our state, but we also have to make sure that, overdrawing it, having a permanent dividend that is such that it brings on new tax, it brings on high taxes, and it weakens our government services such as education and public safety. So we have to find that balance in there.
Is that a good answer,
thanks,
Representative McCabe?
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, all that is sort of a socialist answer, but I do appreciate I appreciate the explanation. Fact of the matter is that SB 26 changed the PFD, the dividend itself, from a transfer to appropriation, and that happened after the vetoes. So we have struggled so much with it. Alaskans have struggled so much with it in the legislature. It's the big elephant in the room in any budget discussion. I couldn't disagree more with what Governor Walker just said, but I appreciate the opportunity to ask the question. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for the call. State Representative Kevin McCabe out here in the Valley. And Gary, thanks for at least the call and with the comment. Governor Walker, so on the PFD, one of the streams of your answer underflow is that you either did work or couldn't work with the Senate, or they wouldn't work with you, but you also are notable for working with policymakers across the aisle. So some have said that you're fairly amenable to dealing with lawmakers, and you don't have an attitude like, hey, I'm above you, you're just different branch. Do you think that's something that will be a benefit should you get elected with the forthcoming new legislature coming in, with the new state Senate and new state House, that you can get along with them, and does that matter?
Well, yes, on both those, it matters a great deal. If you don't get along with the legislature and find a way to find common ground, then nothing happens, or it just drug out. And so I think that's what we've had. So I look at legislature as 60 Alaskans, no different than the governor, lieutenant governor, that all, want to do what they feel is best for Alaska. So my style is to, because I'm nonpartisan, there's not an us and them and scenario in my world. It's us. When I did not get along with Speaker Chenault, I figured out a way to get along with him. I joined his bowling team, and in the Legislative Bowling League, no governor's ever been to a game, much less joined a team, and he and I bowled together and on the same team. He's a phenomenal bowler. I'm terrible, so I didn't hurt either. And so
he is good. I competed against him too.
He is very good, and after a couple of games and a few beers at the Taco Lanes, we became pretty good friends to this day. So I find common ground and grow that, and I was able to do that with pretty much every legislator that I dealt with. So that's just my style. Is I don't take out ads against them and try to make life miserable for them. It's tough enough job without somebody doing that. So my style is very different than the current governor. Is that I sit down and find the common ground. And that Senate Bill 26 would not have passed if it was a pure partisan. That was a bipartisan vote on Senate Bill 20, which for the structured draw of the permanent fund, and that shifted our revenue to 70% off of earnings from a structured, careful earnings from the permanent fund, down from 90% based on oil, so down to 30%. So it was a big step, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't developed a relationship with the legislature that I did.
The governor who is in the current position, Mike Dunleavy, faced something that most governors would not want to, and that's COVID-19. And with Adam Crum and with Dr. Ann Zink, and working with the feds, bringing in money and supporting infrastructure, many give him a high grade, certainly in my circles. Would you give him a high grade, or is there something you would have done differently in that very tough period?
Certainly I was very public about my praise for the initial response on the COVID, and I thought they had a very tough hand. I thought they did a good job. I certainly was complimentary of all three of them that you mentioned. And so what I would have been probably more, providing a little bit more leadership in the issue on the vaccination. No mandates at all. I just mandated leadership, not anything beyond that. I think we could have been more public about that. We've seen the benefits of that, and so I would have been certainly more public in helping folks understand and answer questions about the benefits and wisdom of the vaccinations. But no, I thought that certainly the initial response, at a time we were the lead in Alaska, the nation on a number of areas of the response. And so the Alaska Native, the tribal health care was a huge part of that. If it hadn't been for tribal health care, they were a major part in working hand in hand with the states. And so I'm glad we had that, and also glad that we brought in Medicaid expansion. 70,000 Alaskans had health care when the pandemic hit. They had medical providers already. They wouldn't have had that without the Medicaid expansion, which of course saved the state money when we brought that money we brought those benefits into Alaska, and the state budget went down. So yeah, it was a number of things that happened, and I certainly have provided praise to the current governor on some of his actions in that crisis, of course.
What I'd like to do is get you back over the campaign cycle. Governor Bill Walker, if someone wants to follow you, I assume you have a website and Facebook and all of those connecting mechanisms online?
Yep, we do have Walker Dragus for Alaska is our follow us there. And we have a lot of information there. Send us a question. Let us know if you want to get together. We have an event tonight, or no, Wednesday night in Anchorage, and some great co-hosts, Dave Cruz, Jim Jansen, and many others that are co-hosting that at the Anchorage Brewing Company from 5:30 to 7, and all are invited. So if you can make that, that'd be great.
Well, we will get you back for sure, Governor Bill Walker, and we'll make a YouTube video of this and put those links in the notes as well. So, hey, thank you for your time, and we'll see you on the campaign trail, and we hope to have you back soon, okay?
Great. Very good, Tom. Have a great day. Thanks
awesome.
so much.
Hey, you too, sir. Thank you. That's Governor Bill Walker, candidate for governor this cycle in 2022. Stay with us. Good morning. Tom Anderson Show. Hey, we're back. Good morning, everybody. Tom Anderson Show. We just heard from Governor Bill Walker. What are your thoughts on that? 357-5868. If Kevin McCabe's listening, I did not expect that call. That was a thoughtful one, and I think that you definitely asked a tougher question than I would. Two people that called in prior, Gary didn't stay with us, Kevin McCabe did, they both called back, so that's actually helpful for this dialogue. We'll also take all of your calls as well, 357-5868, you can get in the queue. How important is the dividend to you and why? Let's go to Gary in East Anchorage first.
Thanks for Kevin McCabe for speaking out. We need more people like him. And whatever. And I was just going to say, if Bill Walker got in the governorship, is he going to move back from China?
Oh, is he in China right now?
Well, that's what when he was in the governorship, that's all he did is run to China and whatever and all that stuff. So I just thought maybe he might want to move back from there. But that's about all I had to say today. I hope he doesn't get in.
Who are you supporting? Are you supporting Dunleavy, Pierce, Kirka?
Pierce.
Pierce. Okay.
Yep.
You're
we
a
need
Charlie
some
guy.
Yeah, I just like him in there, and the dividend is something that was supposed to be for the people, and you can't even call this year much of a dividend. I mean, I got plenty put away, but what is it, 1,500 or 1,300 is for the electrical or whatever, and then a little over 1,000 is for the dividend, but it should have been 4,600. I mean, there's no excuse for what's been going on with the dividend, and I just want to say thank you, Kevin McCabe, for speaking out. We need a ton more people in the legislature like you and Mike Shower.
Thanks for the
Tom.
call, Gary. You betcha, Big G. That's Gary, Sir Gary in East Anchorage. Okay, so I'm getting texts from people saying, God, I love Bill Walker. I'm getting texts from people saying, I disagree with Bill Walker. Someone just texted and said, what about Kirka? I support him. And someone else said, I support Dunleavy. Another, I wish people would call in. It's a radio show. It's like, hey, thanks for the 50 texts. That's meaningless when there's an audience driving to work or bringing their kids to summer camp and they want to hear your thoughts. So 357-5868. While we heard from Gary, who says he's for Charlie Pierce in Kenai, he made a poke, kind of mean-spirited, at Governor Bill Walker. And Gary, I'm sure you're listening, it was. And you said, hey, Governor Bill Walker lives in China. Of course he doesn't live in China. He was raised here and grew up here, but he did work with China. And Governor Walker actually wanted to respond to that, and he was listening, which I appreciate. He listens to the show, and he just called back and he said, would you do me the favor of let me jump on, because I didn't have a chance to respond to that. Of course, I don't live in China, but let me explain the genesis of Alaska's relationship economically with China before someone jumps to judge on that. It was a foreign diplomacy move more than anything. And I said, yes, Governor. So Governor Bill Walker's back. We'll add this to the YouTube video as well. And Governor Walker, what's your response to, not that you live in China, but that you, obviously that's not true, but that you met with Xi Jinping and with the management of China for economic reasons?
I did, Tom, and that actually began. I was invited to during Energy Week. President Trump invited 3 governors to the Oval Office to talk about energy projects. We talked about the gas line. He said, "How can I help?" And I said, "Well, we need market." And he said, "Well, I'll see what I can do." About 3 weeks later, I get a phone call that the president of China on his way back from Mar-a-Lago with President Trump was going to stop in Alaska to have a visit and talk about natural resource development. Of course, China's been Alaska's largest trade partner for the last 13 years. So I said, yes, thank you, President Trump, and welcome the president of China to Alaska. And then about a month or so later, President Trump invited, and his Secretary of Commerce invited us to China with President Trump's team to be part of a signing ceremony on resource development from Alaska to China. And so I thanked President Trump again for that, and went over there and we did that. So my connection with China was really, it's a couple of things. One is certainly our largest trade partner for 13 years. And when the President of the United States makes an introduction, you don't ignore that. He was very, very adamant about this project. Liked it very much on the LNG side, and so that opened doors with subsequent meetings I had with the President of South Korea, President Moon, the Prime Minister of Japan, subsequent Prime Minister Suga, other connections we had as a result of that. So as a governor, I don't pick and choose. When a President of the United States says, "I'd like you to meet such and such," absolutely, that's what we did.
Well, let me jump in here too. Governor Bill Walker with us, and NBC 13 up in Fairbanks, January 16, 2020, from Hank Davis, quote, appearing on Wednesday at the Alaska Petroleum Club of Anchorage, Governor Mike Dunleavy fielded a wide range of questions before the upcoming legislative session next week. He prefaced it all with a topic that would be the focus during much of his address, the newly signed U.S.-China trade agreement. The deal covers the next 2 years and lays out large markets, billions of dollars. Dunleavy said that this is good for Alaska fisheries and timber industries. He says that we're working through the details. It's our understanding that it's going to involve fish and other things, and he was pleased with the connection. So do you think it's a foul or bad to work with another country, or do you think that there's, even though they're communist, China, and there's a frustration with China or a distrust, do you think we're inextricably linked to some degree?
Well, I think, you look at Governor Hickel would always have me in his office. You look at Alaska from the top down. What do you see? You don't see, the Florida Panhandle or San Diego. You see Asia. And so Asia has been our longest trade partner since October of 1969, when the first shipment of LNG left Nikiski to Asia. So we have our largest trade partners, the top five. None are the continental U.S. And so they're all in Asia and Canada. So it's a matter of their customers. And by law, you can't have foreign ownership over 25% on anything in the U.S. And so there's never be a situation there'd be a controlling interest or those kinds of things. So they're customers, and so customers for our fish, for our timber, for our minerals, for our mining, for our gold, for our they've long been our major trade partners. Asia has. So where China fits into that, I don't know. The world has changed, but there's plenty of market, outside of China as well. But that relationship, that opportunity that President Trump gave us on the world stage was priceless from the standpoint of, our phones blew up from all over the world saying, "My gosh, we want some of this action as well, and what can we do?" So when you're governor of Alaska, you have to represent Alaska, and not just what's good for one party or another party. You've got to represent it across the board equally.
Do you agree with, we're talking with Governor Bill Walker, who came back to answer a question from one of our callers who didn't want to call in but texted it instead or left a message. But with regard to trust but verify, as Reagan and others have said, I personally am not a fan of China, and I talk about it often on the show, whether it's copyright infringement and trademark infringement or deception in certain angles. We've had guests on who've written books, General Spaulding, Sebastian Gorka, Dan Bongino, so many in the Michael Knowles, in the world of politics and blogging and radio. And then I look at like rare earth elements and the dependence on China. Do you have any consternation or concern there? I assume you're not just free willing it to them and saying we'll do anything with them. I assume you have some safeguards because they're not always trustworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be careful about that. No question about that, and certainly we would. And again, I believe our resources can be developed and marketed without going through China, going directly. That's why I met with the president of South Korea, the prime minister of Japan at that level, was to make sure there's enough market there to, but the real key is to get the energy to Alaskans to bring down our cost of energy. We still have the lowest cost of energy in the nation, the lowest, not the highest. And so here we are right now with the highest cost of energy. It is painful, and Representative McCabe, made some good comments about the cost of energy in rural Alaska, and I was remiss in not thanking him for his service as a member of the legislature. All members of the legislature deserve thanks for what they do. It's a tough job, but he's right about that. Our cost of energy, we've got to bring that down. But economy of scale is such that we need an export piece to it for some of our resources, and certainly on the gas side as well. So Japan, our longest 40-year contract, the longest honored contract of LNG in the history of the world, is between Alaska and Tokyo Gas. And so that's it came out of Cook Inlet. Cook Inlet's a different situation now. We need that gas locally, and thank heavens we have that. So, but anyway, I certainly would be hesitant at this point to engage with China, just because we need to put this project together without having to have any reliance upon a country that is highly suspect in our relationship as far as what's safe for us.
Fair enough. Governor Bill Walker, always a pleasure. Appreciate you calling in and answering that question as well.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a good day.
You betcha. Gary, that answered your question. Governor Walker doesn't have an apartment in Shanghai. If he did, I would say, hey, I'd like to visit. Actually, I don't want to visit China. If he had an apartment in Tokyo, I would go. I'd have to go to the bank and get a pile of money because Tokyo's outrageous. By the way, folks, did you know Tokyo's the most populated city, if you count the suburbs, in the world? More than Mumbai, more than Shanghai, more than Mexico City, more than New York City. It is populated. I like to see our collaboration with countries like Japan and South Korea. I'd prefer not with China. And if we could disconnect from China and Russia to all ends, I would be quite pleased with that. And I bet you dollars to donuts most of you feel the same way. But Governor Walker said, hey, I do not want to get sidled up to them either. But sometimes when it comes to timber or natural resource development, if they're raising their hand, not his words, my words, but in a nutshell, he said you have to look at opportunities across the world. And that's for you to decide if you agree with that or not. I suppose it depends on a lot of different factors. I personally would prefer never to deal with China. I'm glad with Congressman Newhouse's legislation that, and I didn't ask Walker about that, Governor Walker, but that China can't own agricultural land. I bet you he agrees. I'd love to get Arthur Key, my good friend Arthur Key's view on that. I bet you he agrees too. Okay, folks, you can go to our YouTube channel later for the Governor Bill Walker interview and Kevin McCabe's question, and also podcast. Stay with us for Charlie Kirk next up. Enjoy your Tuesday. God bless. Drive safe.